Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, 5-time Voice Arts Awards nominee, David Brower.
Thanks, Allan. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guest today from Sonoma, California is Steve Bruno. He's been a professional interventionist for over 17 years and helped literally hundreds of families help those they love recover from addiction and alcoholism. And he's also an author. His book, More Than Hope, offers an insight into the mind of the addict and lays out strategies geared to help families. So, Steve, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, you got a long story that got you into this endeavor, right? How do you go from Steve Bruno child to Steve Bruno veteran interventionist?
Well, you have to have a long middle chapter there titled
sure.
Steve Bruno, the Addict.
There you go.
And obviously, I wasn't an addict all the time, but my life was a poster, and I had stellar successes, student body president in high school and in college, followed by these cliffhanging chapters of drug use, cocaine, meth, crack, at different points in my life, depending on where I was living. And by the time I had gone through treatment 6 times, I had given up.
Wow.
My family came down and did an intervention on me, and I was not in denial. I felt broken, and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what I did. Didn't matter what I tried. That it was never going to work. And
did you not care
so
about
they
it?
did this interview.
Did you not care about anything at that point?
I did, but I just couldn't seem to make it work.
Yeah.
I cared a lot.
Yeah.
And this is the thing: a lot of addicts, families will overlook, and they think, well, the addict doesn't care. But the reason that the addict is using and is in so much internal conflict is because he cares.
Yeah.
Because, I've been doing interventions for years, as you've already mentioned, and I have never done intervention on somebody who was insensitive. Usually the people that I'm hired to help are very sensitive and very intelligent, and that's why they get so very, very stuck. Under the burden of their own wrongdoing, and in the cycle of addiction, solving that burden on a daily basis by with drugs or alcohol.
And so the experience that you had obviously helps you communicate much better than concerned families that don't know much about anything, right?
That's right. Eventually, I shared the intervention, what happened at the intervention, with my dealer, with my meth dealer.
Okay.
And she had asked me, she said, what's the meeting about? And I told her, and ironically, she said, Steve, you should go.
Wow.
You should go to the program. So my dealer talked me into going. She said, I've been worried about you because, you smoke more meth than anybody I know. And, you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I ended up going to the program and graduating. And in answer to your question, yes, just after 2 weeks after graduating, I did my first intervention. And all of my years of using and struggling with depression and my family and drugs use and treatment and all this suddenly came to bear. It suddenly became this skill set.
Wow.
Where I could see into the mechanics of a family who has an addict and is struggling with the chaos that, invariably
right.
is part of that life. And I was able to get the guy into treatment the next day. And I've never looked back.
Wow.
That's how I got into the business. Yeah. Something to be said for experience over, academics.
Well, yeah. and it's interesting to me in a good way that your dealer even noticed that, dude, you need some help or you're gonna not be here tomorrow,
Yeah.
Wow. To live through that, now to be able to share that life with different people over the last 17 years or so, that's got to be unbelievably satisfying for you, not to mention the families that you're affecting.
I got a call on Thanksgiving from this guy, Tyler. Tyler, 22-year-old, I helped. And the intervention, and just so your listeners know, this is unusual, but the intervention took 10 days. And I was, getting ready to just close the file on this one. I mean, I was out, he was riding his bike around in the middle of the night every night getting meth.
Yeah.
We'd already been through an eviction with him and all of this. And anyway, it was a very sad story. But eventually I was able to get him in. So he calls me on Thanksgiving to thank me.
Wow.
For helping get him into treatment, and that he was doing really well in the program. And I don't often get calls from clients because a lot of the time the addict or alcoholic they don't want to remember the intervention. They don't have any, but occasionally I'll get a call, and and Tyler was doing really well, and he's, going to stay in San Diego where the program is and live there, and he's very happy. Yeah, that's pretty satisfying.
Boy, no kidding.
Somebody go from riding around on their bike in the middle of the night and somewhere in West Virginia and buying meth and wasting his youth.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't need any credit. I mean, like I said, I wrote the book. I didn't write the book thinking I was going to make money with it or thinking I was going to become famous with it. I wrote the book because families need the viewpoint of an addict.
Yeah.
When it comes to helping an addict, they really do. And there's very few, there are very few books out there about this, and about how a family can win when they're challenged by the chaos and the mess that is often the life of an addict. But yeah, no, it's Tyler just called me on his own. It wasn't an apology or anything like that. He got my number from his mom and called me to thank me for helping him out. Yeah, I've gotten that a couple of times. Cool. And there are stories in my book. There was a young woman, Kate, in Bellevue. The story in the book is Sarah. She was wealthy. She had $2 million in the bank. She had a big house, and she had a bong and a very nasty crack cocaine addiction. And she initially agreed to go to a program, and then she missed her flight. And then we went back the next day, and she didn't answer the door. So she missed the next flight.
Yeah.
And by the third flight she missed, her mom, I remember, turned to me and said, "Steve, why don't you go home? Because she's just lying." And this is something that often is sort of bypassed by families. She wasn't lying. And this is the case with a lot of addicts. She was stuck.
Yeah.
She was stuck, and she was chained, shackled to this drug. And so we stuck it out a couple more days. We were able to get her onto a plane, finally get her into a program. And she graduated 6 months later. She got a degree in addiction counseling, and she became the program director for a women's recovery program in Newport Beach.
Oh my God. I got goosebumps on that one, man. That's cool.
Well, and this is the recurring theme that is going to get us out of this opioid epidemic, and any drug epidemic is going to be those who have recovered helping those who haven't.
Yeah.
It's not going to be some government intervention. I'm sorry, but it's going to come from us helping one another.
Well, it's it's pay it forward on steroids. I mean,
Right.
no drug pun intended there, but so the book, More Than Hope, the Intervention Guidebook, what works, what doesn't, what to do, and how to do it. That's the name of the book. It's on Amazon, and it says Volume 1. So are you working on Volume 2?
I am. I'm working on a workbook for families so that they can fill in, sort of answer the questions as they go along.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm working on a book called The Exploding Workshop, which is just a collection of true stories, true interventions. So
nice.
Look for those next year. Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, and reading some of all your reviews are 5 stars, and it's, people are really connecting to what you're doing here. And some of what was one of the reviews? It was like, basically the guy said, "Man, I had no idea." Right? About the life of an addict.
It's not dry reading.
No, it's not. Yeah. Absolutely not. Just reading through part of it, and I'm going, all you got to do is read 1, 2, 3 of those reviews and realize that you don't know what you don't know, and you better pick up that book.
In the beginning, I tell my story of addiction, and then I tell the story of my intervention. from my viewpoint at the time. And then my mother wrote a chapter about my intervention from her viewpoint at the time.
Perfect.
So I try to, so it's really, a lot of it's first person narrative, real grit, frontline stuff. And then there's a lot of strategic advice I give. And then, as I said, the last section is 6 true stories. So yeah, it's not, like a textbook or something.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. It's real life stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
So how do families find you? Somebody's sitting at home in Kelso, Washington, and they think they know they need to have some kind of intervention. They don't know what to do, where to go, who to talk to. How does that kind of a situation find you?
Well, often, as far as your listeners go, they can just go to my website, morethanhope.com. My book, as you've mentioned, is on Amazon, More Than Hope. My name is Steve Bruno, as you said, and I'm one person. There are a lot of people out there who can help. I'm often found through, when families contact a treatment center, I typically work through referral, but More Than Hope is the website and the title of the book. So they can go there, and my phone number is there. And they're welcome to call or fill out the contact form if they're more comfortable with that.
There you go.
And, people don't have to be hiring me to talk to me. I want to say that. I'm always happy to talk shop and to give advice if I can help. If there's a situation out there that I can help with, I'll help with it.
Well, and in fact, on your website, I'm looking at the stevebruno.com website, but you've got a free consultation tab there where people could just reach out and get a hold of you.
And not to confuse people, stevebruno.com is morethanhope.com. It's the same.
Okay.
Both of those go to the same website. So.
Okay, cool. So morethanhope.com, and you'll have information there about Steve, some of the stories. There's a blog there that you can read about. You can read about his bio and read the book. And you're on like social media. I've never seen so many social media icons anywhere, dude. You are like everywhere. That's awesome. I don't even know what some of these are. Delicious?
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
I probably don't either, to be honest. I outsource that stuff,
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. I know that drill. So can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
So when you get done with a 10-day intense, over-the-top, harder than you expected intervention, and it's successful, how much does that drain you? Do you need counseling after that? Do you need to vent after that? You know what I mean? How do you take care of yourself is what I'm asking.
Well, the main thing to be honest with you, the main thing that wears me down is the travel. It is a lot of flying and often a lot of driving, depending on what I'm dealing with. Yeah. And it can be at all hours of the night. I had a case out in Las Vegas, and the guy I first was introduced to him. He immediately started talking about the Illuminati, the New World Order, and the FBI agents in the trees, and all of this. He was really gone on meth.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to get him on a plane, TSA, like that.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
So I had the mom rent a car, and we basically took all day to get him squared away, get him all packed up. I don't know if I should get into this, but it is what it is. I baited him with the prospect of getting him some of his drug of choice for him if he were packed up and ready to go.
Gotcha.
So he got packed up and got ready to go. And I fulfilled my side of the deal, and he sat in the back and got high, and I drove him out to Newport Beach. So that's a long day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a long day. So yeah, and as an interventionist, it's there's sort of an ebb and flow to the work. It's not like you get up and go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
An intervention comes in, and it's a certain kind of storm, and you have to sort of take it apart and deal with what it is. And at the end, just hope you get a couple days before you need to do it again. Because it is very wearing.
I would think so.
I value my
your downtime,
decompression time.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you've got to be. Your listening skills have to be through the top. To be able to truly, authentically listen to not only the addict, but the family, because their emotions are high and in different places. And wow, hats off to you, man. So how many interventions have you done roughly?
Probably, but somewhere between 400 and 500.
Yeah. Fascinating how many lives you've
I'm not sure of the exact number.
Yeah.
But
so,
yeah, you're right. I mean, people think that the addicts are the one that's messed up, and like the rest, they have the image that the rest of the family is sort of together. But that's not the case.
Not even close.
The families are, I mean, everybody usually has first of all, everybody has their own opinion about what should be done or how it should be done and all of that. And then people get advice at Al-Anon meetings, or they go and they get advice from their friend who had a friend who did an intervention.
Yeah. Sent a letter to Dear Abby. That's always a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what got me writing the book, actually, is when I first started doing interventions, I was posed this question of the very first family I worked with. The first question the mom asked me was, how are you going to get David, in this case, how are you going to get David to admit that he has a problem? And I stood there. I remember thinking, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Why would I try to get, I mean, I was more honest with my dealer than I was with my mother. Right?
So, understood.
As an addict, I'm thinking, why in God's name would I try to get some guy to admit something to his mother?
Yeah.
Like that just didn't compute. And then the more families I worked with, the more I realized that families have this notion that they, in fact, it is so, emblazoned in people's minds that they have to get an addict to admit that they have a problem, that many families won't offer the addict treatment if they don't admit that they got a problem. And I thought, this is crazy. This is inane, because you're trying to get an addict to confess to something to his family. I don't understand what the upside is. The family has this fantasy that the addict is going to tell between his legs and say, oh, you're right, I really need help.
Yeah.
And the tear will softly flow down his cheek. I mean, that is a friggin' pipe dream.
Yeah, that's a bad movie. Yeah.
So I don't like. So I started writing the book, and this is in the chapter, The Confession, is sort of the thesis of why I started, was to help families simplify what they're doing. Forget trying to get him to admit anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to admit anything. Addicts can go into treatment. And I do want to say this while we have some airtime.
Sure.
That addicts, you do not have to get an addict to admit to anything in order for treatment to work. That is a myth. That whole notion. People go into treatment in denial all the time, and they do equally well as anyone else who goes in. People go in with bells on and their meditation book ready to go, and you think those are the ones that are going to succeed. Well, absolutely not.
Right.
People who go in denial, once they come in for a landing and they look back on their life and they think to themselves, Jesus, what was I doing?
Yeah,
they often have some of the best success stories.
It seems like the families are just making it about themselves because they don't know what they don't know.
Well, families are told this, and it's actually told that you need to get an addict to admit it. And that the thing is, it comes from one of two places. One, therapists who write books about interventions.
Right.
Therapists, by definition, are trained to help people face their problems and come to terms with them. But I am not a therapist. I'm an addict. I'm an ex-addict. So I don't try to turn the intervention into therapy because I know better. You're just going to have a bigger mess. It's going to be unnecessarily counterproductive. The other thing is that someone may have misinterpreted the first steps of the 12 steps. 12 steps is arguably the most prolific program on the planet.
Yep.
And the first step is we came to admit we were powerless over our addiction. And so someone may have read that and said, oh, well, then that means he needs to admit it to us, to his family.
Sure.
And may have come from that. But in any event, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's an important point to make that the purpose of that any well-done intervention has the same result, which is the person arrives at the program, whether he's in denial or not.
Folks, you got to get this book. I'm just saying. More Than Hope, the Intervention Guidebook. What works, what doesn't, what to do, and how to do it. morethanhope.com. We've been talking with Steve Bruno. He's lived it, he knows it, he breathes it, and that's how he helps people survive and get back to their families. And your success rate is like through the top, right?
Yeah. Last year I did 30 interventions and 29 of them arrived.
Wow.
So that's about double the national average.
Congratulations, man, and blessings to you for what you do and how you do it, and continued success. It was a real privilege to talk to you.
No, it was a pleasure, David. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Listen to Your 20-Minute Podcast with David Brower on the go. Downloads are available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast app, and on our website at davidbrowervo.com/Your 20-Minute Podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening.